This afternoon we're out here at Ron Madden, and this is Mr. Madden here. He's done a little bit of work with the Conklin program versus the dry program, and I'm going to turn it over to Ron here and let him tell you a little bit about how his test plots here with alfalfa, what he's seeing with the dry versus the Conklin program. Ron?
In dry here, this was planted back in April the 4th, and I saw quite a bit of difference in the dry over the liquid. The dry here has taken about a week longer to really get up out of the ground compared to the liquid fertilizer and the amplified D. Also, I saw where using the fuller cyto, the leaf size on alfalfa is a good bit of difference on it. This was cut and baled on July the 4th, and this will be the second cutting coming on here now.
How much rainfall do we have in July there, Ron?
In July we got it for the whole month right at an inch of rain, but that inch was a lot of times 2/10 here, 1/10 there, and just about enough to settle the dust down. That's all it did.
Okay. Okay, Ron, on this one over here, this is your Conklin program. Tell us a little bit about what you did here and how you're getting along.
Right here, I used amplified D here, 3 ounces to 50 pounds of seed, and then I put on 20 ounces of solar cyto with 3 gallons of 3-18-18, a pint of calcium, half a pint of zinc, and a third of a pint of boron at full feeding time with it. When they came up about 2 inches in height there, I came back in and I full fed it with another pint of calcium and 3 gallons of 3-18-18 with 2 ounces of the new Sidekick, which is a 0025 with 17% sulfur. I have noticed here where the leaves are a good size bigger in width and length. Also, I'm seeing there a little cleaner field here of the second cutting that's coming on. Again, I think here the full feeding really does shine over dry fertilizer.
What about your soil test and your micros, or how are you needing them here on this piece of ground versus some other ground we've seen?
Right here on this ground, I mean boron and sulfur is the 2 big ones that I really need. The calcium, I use it because I've noticed that I've been able to keep my pH level the same, or maybe climb it just a little bit. And if I can do that, the pH here on this ground was 6.7. If I can just maintain it and not have to come in here with the lime truck and put the lime on, so I save a lot of compaction, plus that's the cost into the lime if I can keep my pH up.
Okay. How many years have you been using the seed program and the Conklin program? And give us a little bit of background on what you've been doing, and mainly the reason why did you decide to go with the Conklin program versus stay with the old traditional dry fertilizer?
My main reason why I went over to the Conklin feed fertilizer and the whole program is mainly because 2 years ago I decided to go out on my own, and before I went out and bought my own machinery here, while I farmed my 2 brothers and my dad, I decided there that I really wanted to see, check into some liquid fertilizer compared to the dry. And I really saw a real big difference in the feed fertilizer, where I'm only having put on 5 gallons when I plant corn in that way, because I can do a lot more acres before I have to fill up, for one thing, plus the savings on the money and better yield. The nitrogen for my corn, I'm using the Guardian with the nitrogen, and I've been able to cut my nitrogen rate back, I would say a good third right now. I got some test plot out here with the nitrogen of anywhere from 80% or 80 units of nitrogen up to 175 units, and I'll just see this fall.
Okay, we're going to talk about alfalfa real quickly. This has been an interesting year. It's been tough. It was really wet this spring. In fact, I got more hay that got rain on this year than probably in the last 8 years, because we love putting together or producing alfalfa. We always try to get it up with not any moisture. And then when it quit raining in July, it totally quit. I had this scheduled. If we'd have got rain in July, that we'd have had the third cutting off, and the fourth cutting would have been probably 6 or 8 inches high, so it was going to be perfect here for the field day. But we didn't get any rain in July. I just went ahead and let it go on into bloom, and then we took it off just a couple days ago. Just left the bales out here, so when you come back out later today, if you want to, you can go check them out. You may look at this alfalfa field and say, well, gee whiz, this is not very impressive. I mean, you see a little bit of grass in there, and it's not a super thick stand. Well, let me explain something to you. You're looking at an alfalfa field that's been in production for 9 years. When you look at that, relatively impressive if you know anything about alfalfa. Now, why is that? In fact, let me share something with you. This alfalfa field has had cattle in it every winter, all winter long, for 8 winters. I planned on breaking this field up and the other field there that we came by 2 years ago, and we didn't get it done, and so I was sure going to break it up last winter. Then we had the production sale in October, and Ed said, boy, we need a place to go with all the calves. And I said, well, just fence off that alfalfa patch in the back. And I said, just let them out there. I said, it don't make any difference. I said, we're going to plow it up this winter anyway. I said, they can't hurt it. So winter got past, and we had this was just full of cattle back here, and they had it all tromped and all hoof prints and in the mud and in the snow. Never took them off, left them to the spring. They were grazing. I said, well, and then it was so dry. We went in the spring dry. I said, well, shoot, I'll just take the first cutting off. So we took the cattle off, took the first cutting of hay off, 2 ton per acre, 9-year-old stand. Then I thought, well, I'll just spray it with Roundup and we'll plant soybeans in there. Stayed dry. So here it is. So maybe there's a reason. Now next year when you come back, it should be broken up, okay? That's the plan. I explain alfalfa production like building a house. You got to start with a strong foundation. I had John Sneathen driving the truck and the trailer on the last tour because we had a little larger group, and they planted 22 acres. Just 2 days ago, they came over and we sat down and talked, and John said, you know, he said, I've learned something in planting alfalfa. You can't redo it. If you don't do it right the first time, you can't go in and seed more. You got to do it right the first time. And here's what we do. When we plant alfalfa, we use Amplify D. We plant 22 to 24 pounds of seed per acre. Now that may shock some of you, maybe not. It depends on if we've got some real alfalfa producers here on this wagon. But around this area, most people plant 15 to 16 pounds per acre, and they think that's a lot because they're paying 140 to 160 bucks a bag, and that's a lot. I'm going to tell you, if you want a good alfalfa stand, it's not enough. It costs you just as much time and fuel to go through thick alfalfa as it does thin alfalfa. You might as well plant it thick. You can't get it any thicker once you plant it. You got one shot. We use Amplify D. Before we plant, we put down 1/4 Wex per acre, 15 ounces of soil excido, 20 gallons of water, spray that over the top and work it in. Wouldn't think of planting alfalfa without putting down 1/4 Wex per acre. Wouldn't think about it. And we'll talk about Wex in a little bit up here as we get to the next stop. When that alfalfa gets 3 to 4 inches tall, we'll come in here and foliar feed it with 3 to 4 gallon 318/18. I'm convinced that by doing that, we can walk out there today, and if you walk out there, now you got to remember this is the very edge. I mean, this is where we've driven on for 9 years. You walk out there a little bit, and yeah, there is a little bit of grass. I've never sprayed this field for grass in 9 years. So what you get, that's all that you see, and we're getting a little bit now in this dry weather. It's thinning out, but there's still a lot of alfalfa out there. I'll guarantee you by foliar feeding, you'll keep your stands longer, and I'm not suggesting here if you're in alfalfa production that you keep a stand 9 years. My plan is 4 to 5 years we break it up and sow something new. There's new technology, new seed, new hybrids. Lots of things change. That's your most progressive years for alfalfa production. We foliar feed after every cutting. 3-18-18, quart of boron, quart of calcium, 2 quarts of sidekick, 10 to 12 ounces of foliar excido. When we take off the last cutting in the fall, and if it won't happen this year, we can get 5 cuttings. Last year we got 5 cuttings of hay. We take off our first cutting usually about the middle of May. You know, this year it's not going to happen. If we get some rain, hope a little more rain this weekend, we'll get 1 more cutting. When you take off that last cutting in the fall, then we come back with just 3-18-18, no micronutrients, nothing else, just 3-18-18, 4 gallon an acre. I call it putting that crop to sleep for the winter. That's what you want to do. And if you'll do that, that takes care of your first cutting come spring. I don't foliar feed that other first cutting come spring till I get the first cutting off, because you got lots of stem anyway. You got more stem to leaf ratio. That's why I like to take it off as soon as possible. And then when we take it off, why then we start to foliar feed again. And we'll come in this weekend. Now Francis and I are going to North Dakota for a meeting Saturday, so it'll probably be Monday when I get back. But Monday we'll come in here and we'll foliar feed everything. We'll put some Lorsban in this time because we got a lot of grasshoppers here. You know, we mowed the waterways now. The grasshoppers don't have anywhere to go. They're just thick. When we mowed this the other day, the header was just full. So we'll put a little Lorsban in just in case to take care of the grasshoppers so they're not eating it as that's starting to sprout, and hopefully be able to pull off a good fourth cutting. Mike, where are you at on the trailer? Would you come up here if you would? Mike is in the hay business. Mike became a distributor not too long ago for the very first time. He and I talked this morning. This is his first year foliar feeding alfalfa. I've talked to you about foliar feeding from a little bit of yield. I've talked to you about keeping your stands longer. Now we need to talk a little bit about quality. And let me share something with you. We sell quite a bit of hay to the dairy industry. We've shipped hay to Texas and Michigan and Wisconsin and Tennessee and New York and Maryland. If you're going to ship hay to that industry and get good money, 160 RFV to me is the line. Anything under 160, you've got what I call trash hay. They're not even going to look at you. You got to get really 180, 190, 200 if you're going to get $125 to $140 per ton for good quality hay. A year ago, I sold 17 semi-loads of good quality hay out of those 2 buildings up there in a 2-week period, all for $125 a ton at the barn. Plus they paid the shipping then to Maryland or New York or Tennessee. So there's a good market out there if you got good quality hay. But you got to get that RFV up. And I can tell you that this year in this area, even the test station said that most of the hay coming in, first cutting was testing somewhere between 130 to 155 on RFV. Our first cutting tested 179. Same weather conditions, same of everything. Now you say, well, he owns the company, so he's telling you that. Well, it's nice to have Mike on the tour because I got somebody else that can share some response, and he's been in the hay business a long time. He understands quality hay, ships a lot of hay, sells a lot of hay. Mike, why don't you share what you saw this year?
Thanks, Charlie. Dale May, most of you probably know him as the one that got me from Goodland, Kansas. I'm at Wamego, Kansas. I was born and raised in Schubert, Nebraska up here and spent the first 30 years of my life up here on the farm with my dad and my brother till the early 80s. Then we moved to Wamego and I've been down there about 19 years, and that whole time I've been in the commercial hay business. And like Charlie, we ship hay all over the United States. And
Dale may have been working on me for a year or two about this Conklin. Of course, I had known Charlie. I talked to Charlie a little bit. Charlie never bothered me a bit about Conklin. We just talked about hay. But Dale finally talked me into it, coming out 3 or 4 times and spending some time with me. And the main reason I did it was to get the, as Charlie was saying, the quality of the hay up, because the dairies were asking for such high quality hay. I do have quite a few dairies that will take the 150, 160 stuff yet, but as he said, the 180, 90, 200 is what most of them are wanting. Most of their nutritionists are telling them that's what they got to have. And the thing I guess that got me on the foliar feeding was that they were saying that it would increase your RFV several points, which I'm always looking for. And of course, it's easy. I'm one of a guy that wants to believe a lot of things, but it's sure nice to experience it too. And Dale got me started on this. I got started on it late. I actually got it on the first cutting way late, so I would say probably most of mine showed up more on the second cutting than the first. But my second cutting, we were already getting dry. We just got 3 cuttings up down there. But we had like 70 hundredths in the month of July and 3 rains down there. And I kind of did like Charlie on my second cutting. I let my hay go till it was probably 50% bloom, just hoping I was going to get a rain the next day or two and get a little more tonnage. Finally I told the boys, I said, we got to get this down or this hay's not going to be worth anything. Because a lot of that hay that's worth 150, 140, 30 is bringing $40, $45 a ton, even though it's dry weather. And I just held my breath. I took my test on that hay after we got it up and sent it in, and I was expecting that 130, 140 stuff. And that came, I put in 3 tests on 3 fields, and it came back 177 to 179. And I just thank the Lord for that, and Conklin too, I guess. Just flat amazed me that that happened, because that hay went from, I'm selling that hay now to dairies, and that hay went from $40, $50 hay to $100 hay. Just, but I think a lot of it was from the foliar feeding. And I sure thank you for that. Thanks, Charlie.
Let's give Mike a hand. I appreciate that. You know, I know we got to move on. I hope there's one thing you remember, and Mike said it, but I want to review it one more time. And he's absolutely right, and I said trash hay. That's probably not good terminology, but you get hay in the 130 to 155 range. And let me tell you where that hay is going to go to. The only market you got is some feedlot somewhere where they're going to grind it. You've got grinding hay. Now, it may be pretty, and it may be green, and it may have leaves, it may have all those things, but don't get emotional about it. You got grinding hay. That's all you've got. And there's a big feedlot over here in Salem, Nebraska. I shipped some hay to one of the largest feedlots in the Midwest and sale barns up just 50 miles out of Omaha. You're talking about $40 to $50 a ton. If you can take that 155, 150 RFV hay, and you can raise that to 180, 185. Guys, on the average, you're talking about doubling the value of that hay. $45 to $50 to $100 a ton. That's significant. I mean, on first cutting hay, like here, where we took off an average of 2 ton even on our hold hay, that's $100 an acre additional money, additional profit on one cutting of hay. That's why it's worth doing a little extra management. It's worth doing it right. Now, you say, well, gee whiz, foliar feeding, you know, some of the guys around here say, well, and depending on what you put on, you know, it's going to range how many micronutrients and all the things that I listed, but it's going to range anywhere from 12 to maybe as high as $24 an acre, $25 an acre. And some people say, $25 an acre foliar feeding on my hay? I mean, man, how could I justify that? Well, would you spend $25 an acre if you can make 100? Can you justify it? Mike, is it justifiable? It absolutely is. And you and I both know that the challenge is you get a bunch of 150 hay sitting around in your shed, or 140 hay, you have trouble even selling it. You got 180, 195, 200 hay, you got any trouble selling it? It's gone. They're asking for it. All right, any quick questions, and we'll go on to the next stop and talk a little bit about wax. Anybody quickly?
Chime
Timing of the foliar, 3 to 5 days after we take the hay off. I used to wait a little bit longer, thinking, boy, if you had a little bit more growth there, but I'm convinced that the sooner you can put it on within reason. I mean, if we had time, I wouldn't have any problem foliar feeding this field right today.
Right, you've heard Francis and Charles and everybody talk about Wex. I'll tell you a little bit about how I was introduced to Conklin. Was with Amplify, and then the next product the guy talked to me about was Wex. Well, I'm sure we got a lot of professional farm people on the trailer here, and I kind of looked at those guys. You tell me I'm going to use a surfactant or a wetting agent and spray on maybe a pine or a quart rate per acre on my farm ground is going to make a significant change in that crop. And so I kind of looked at them a little bit funny, but we took the products back to North Carolina, and the Amplify, we can immediately see a response with that with our stand count. So I said, okay, this product works. We put in a test plot with Wex, and it still kind of behooves me how you can put 1 pint to 1 quart of a product out here to the acre and see the type of results that we're seeing with it. Conklin developed this product in the 70s, and we've evaluated it here every year I've been at this farm, and we've seen anywhere from 5 to 6 bushels per acre consistently year after year. That doesn't matter if we used it last year on this acre of farm or corn over here. We come back and use it again, and we'll still get that 5 to 6 bushel yield increase. This corn here was planted 4 weeks later than the nitrogen study that we just came from over there earlier. The reason this is later, we had this area here that we could fill in with. Now this is 5th year corn on corn right here. This has been an insecticide study that we've been running, so this is 5th year corn on corn. There's a lot of drought that was predicted, which it really has come, home to us here in July. So I said, let's put in a Wex study. Charles and Tim said, well, they agreed to that. We came over here and put this in. What we did, we put 1 quart of Wex. This is the control. The standard fertility program, and again, this is a 5th year corn on corn, so it's probably not as healthy as it would be corn after beans. And the one in Charles's left hand is where we put 1 quart of Wex.